APIA Nevada is a grassroots nonprofit organization that advocates for policies empowering everyday Asian Pacific Islander Nevadans. Nevada is home to a growing APIA community, accounting for 1 in 10 voters. We are One APIA Nevada. Tonight's episode of Out in Front is brought to you by our season sponsors, Nevada State Education Association, One APIA Nevada, Silver State Voices, and Stefan and Marta Schmidt.
So a school teacher, you do so many great things for our community. What role did climate policy play in your race this cycle? And what did you hear from constituents when you were out in the community talking to Nevadans?
Thank you, Annette, and thank you so much for inviting me to participate in this panel this evening. I think my constituents were very excited to have a conversation about climate this election cycle, and I think that's going to result in action this legislative cycle. At the doors, I think we were hearing a lot of issues, a lot of questions about what we're going to do about the water crisis. I think that was kind of front and center for a lot of our community. So we're investing in renewable energy here in the state of Nevada. What we're doing to make sure that we're keeping our air clean for our kiddos. And so I think that those are conversations that we heard a lot in our community. And I think it's really critical that we are taking legislative action to ensure that we're keeping our climate safe.
So just generally, Assemblywoman, we are getting ready to start legislative session on Monday. You were just talking to me. You're going up there tomorrow. I'm going up there on Saturday. Many of us are going to be focused on the legislative session this year. What are some of the things you're just generally excited to work on this cycle or this legislative session? And what are some of the things you're looking forward to talking about during session this year?
So I think we're looking at a number of different issues this legislative cycle that some have to do with climate and energy and others that don't. But I think, some of the things that I know I'm working on, I think that our community has to have a say when we are changing parks in our communities. I represent a district that is in very urban Las Vegas area. And as parks are changing, a lot of those public notices are being sent out in only English. So a large portion of our community is unable to participate and voice what they'd like to see. Unfortunately, we see this lack of green space in more and more urban communities, less sidewalks, less trees. This is also increasing the heat in that area. And we see that a lot in East Las Vegas. We see that in historic West Las Vegas and in West Las Vegas, the district that I represent. To me, it's really critical that our constituents have a voice in this, that they have a voice in the changes that they're seeing, a voice in the developments that they're seeing. For me, that language access and how language access ties into environmental justice is a really critical conversation that we're going to have moving forward. Outside of that, I think that we're going to have a lot of conversations around, what we're doing to really invest in renewable energy here in the state of Nevada. I think we're going to have a conversation about what we're going to do to address the water crisis. We've taken legislative action, and voters have also taken action and said, we need to invest in renewable energy here in the state of Nevada. But now we have to invest that money to make sure that we're doing that, and we really have to hold companies coming into Nevada accountable as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So we all watched Governor Lombardo's State of the State address last week. Where do you see this legislative session headed, and what can we expect from the Democratic majority in both the Assembly and the Senate to keep Nevada leading on renewable energy, but, also working on other areas of the climate crisis, whether it's, like you said, water, the wildfire issue that we've had, especially in northern Nevada? What things can we hope to work on this session?
This upcoming legislative session, I'm honored to be the chair of government affairs. So government affairs has to do a lot with like how local governments and state governments are working together. And one of those conversations is going to be about emergency response and what that looks like and how we're ensuring that that response is rapid and the funding is rapid too to the communities that need it when we have a fire. So I think that that's going to be a part of that conversation. Outside of that, I think that we're going to be having a large conversation about how we're ensuring, that we have access to water in the majority of the state. That's it doesn't sound, I think if you are not as participatory in the legislature as others, you might not know how controversial the issue of water is here in the state of Nevada. But it is a very controversial topic. And who has the rights to water in our communities is very controversial. So I think we're going to see a lot of that in our Natural Resources Committee. I also think we're going to be having a conversation about the infrastructure and how we're ensuring that, we are continue to build here in Nevada and that we're ensuring that companies are making investments into our economy and workforce as they're coming here.
Yeah, I'm glad you talked about water being controversial because, as Mark Twain said, water is for fighting and whiskey is for drinking. And that couldn't be more true, I think, right now with the crisis we're facing with the Colorado River and also the crisis also in northern Nevada with Lake Tahoe and protecting that and all of the things. How do you think the relationship with Governor Lombardo is going to be on these issues? And how do we, work across the aisle, especially on things like climate change that are disproportionately impacting communities of color, disproportionately impacting communities here in Nevada, across Nevada, especially our rural communities? How can we work across the aisle with Governor Lombardo to actually get something done and make real change on this issue this session?
I think it was unfortunate that the governor's state of the state, he failed to mention climate change and what he was going to do to invest in clean energy here in the state of Nevada and what he was going to do on this topic. I'm hoping that was just an oversight, but that the governor is going to be committed to working with us to create policy that's going to create a healthier and safer Nevada for all. Climate change is not just an issue that impacts, Southern Nevada. It's just a Northern Nevada issue. And there's a lot of policy that is, but this isn't one of those issues. This is a Nevada issue. It's something that we have to address as a state. And I think we have to put political parties aside so that we can work together, so that we can find common sense solutions to really protect hardworking Nevada families.
Absolutely. Assemblywoman, we'll come back to you in just a second. I want to bring Jose in from Make the Road. Jose, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for all the good work that Make the Road does. So what is the Nevada Environmental Justice Coalition, and what are you all working on in this coalition?
Yes, thank you so much for the invitation. The Nevada Environmental Justice Coalition is a network of 15 organizations committed to ensuring that equity, justice, and sustainability are incorporated into governmental decision-making. Nevada is the state with the fastest rate of warming in America, and many of our communities experience poor air quality. The region is becoming increasingly water scarce. And so some of the main projects that we're working with the NEJC, we're part of the policy subcommittee. So this year we are mainly focused on the legislative session, advocating for bills that revolve around environmental justice, preparing a lobbying day in Carson City in the month of March, giving the people the chance to meet face-to-face with their representatives and share their stories and reality. We'll have the opportunity also to reach out to more people, as well with more events in cities like Las Vegas and Reno.
And Jose, what are some of the issues that the coalition is going to be working on this session, and also Make the Road? What are some of the great things that y'all are going to be working on as the legislative session starts on Monday, and how are you all hoping to make change this session?
Yes, so as Make the Road Nevada, we are a part of an EROS project we came up with. So the EROS project is a movement that allows us to speak to vendors across the valley, learning about the effects they face environmentally, while also connecting them with available resources. So my community is made up of immigrant and low-income households. It's very interesting to review the data to see that immigrants are 80% more likely to start a business than people born in the U.S. in 2022. Street vendors have generated around 75K jobs in the USA, just 2022. So during the legislative session, we'll be working to get a bill that acquires this license at a lower cost. So we're trying to lower cost for all vendors. We are trying to avoid any exploitation by people that have the appropriate documentation when applying. We are trying to give the proper wages and benefits to the street vendors. So the main idea is because street vendors are a population that are extremely affected disproportionately due to the extreme heat. So we want to bring that into the legislative session.
I love that bill, and I'm really excited about that bill. And you're working with Senator Doñate on that bill, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's one of the bills that me and my team have seen on the bill tracker, and we're super excited about it. So looking forward to working with you on that. I want you to tell us a little bit more about the EROS project, EROS project, and why these workers are so important to make the Road Nevada's mission and what y'all are working on with that.
Yeah, so during our time working on this project, we have been able to develop communication for their businesses and also connect street vendors with local banks, credit unions, and online banking apps such as Zelle and Cash App to improve their income and also take care of the environment they are growing their business with. It is very common to see that when you go visit a street vendor or an Eros, a lot of the time they only accept cash payments. And so there's some folks that maybe don't carry cash. So that's a loss of profit right there. And they have to spend more time outside breathing in bad air quality in East Las Vegas. And East Las Vegas is one of our biggest heat islands, urban heat islands. So we're trying to take on that, working with the community.
I love that. Thank you. Jose, we'll come back to you in a second. Marco, I want to bring you in. Thank you for helping us put this together tonight. We appreciate it. So obviously, I've known you a long time. We've worked together in Nevada politics, but you've started a new venture now. You're doing something new. So tell us about your new consulting firm, El Faro, and what you're doing and how you took on this work.
Yeah, so like you, Annette, I think I came into this space very simply wanting to make the world a better place, and that we've done so many different things working together, not just on workers' rights, but also on the environment, and a lot of the immigration work that I was doing when we first kind of met, right? And not just that, the civic engagement work that we both did together, as being we were both kind of founding members of many tables when a lot of these groups were coming together to work together. So part of El Faro is I wanted to create a firm that can be a fully spectrum advocacy firm in order for us to continue to do the work that we've done in the past and to be able to help support organizations like yours and candidates like Assemblywoman Torres. My focus will continue to be on campaigns and managing and being a general consultant on those campaigns, as well as doing government affairs and also doing strategic communications. However, though, it's the type of clients that I'm seeking that's interesting, right? I want to focus on nonprofits, government entities, and labor unions, and specifically, and then work on campaigns like Climate Power that are helping lift up all the great work inside of the Inflation Reduction Act, and also other venues, right? And if we're at a point where we're going to decide to start taking work from a corporate client, we want to ensure that the corporate client is responsible and is caring about, not just social issues, but also the environment specifically, and as well as ensuring that, these clients are also good to their workers as well. So that's the focus that I want to see as we move forward, and want to continue to work with you guys on that.
Hey, Maria, mute yourself. There you go. I could hear her talking to the queen in the background. Thank you for that, Marco. So you're here representing Climate Power, like you just talked about. Fill us in on what Climate Power is about and why Nevada specifically is so critical for the future of climate change policy.
Well, one, we need to understand, like the Assemblywoman said earlier, that Nevada's been leading in clean energy for a long time. We had a mutual friend. I was at the Nevada Clean Energy Fund conference earlier today, and we had a friend that was speaking during the luncheon. It was former state senator Chris Brooks, excuse me, and he was talking about all the great work that he had done over the years to make sure that companies like his, when he was at Bombard Electric, and also once he was a legislator, for the clean energy economy to grow. And for the last decade and a half, we've seen that the vast amount of jobs that are coming into Nevada, as we're talking about diversification, are jobs in the clean energy sector, in the renewable energy sector, in the recreation sector, and all of those jobs were created very simply because of policies like Senator Brooks voted for, but also Assemblywoman Torres. Right. I just read an article a few weeks ago, or actually a couple of days ago, on Politico, where solar company QCell is investing $2.5 billion into Georgia in Marjorie Taylor Greene's district. Right. And now even Marjorie Taylor Greene, right, this climate change denier, is saying, yes, those jobs are great. So we need to be in a situation here in Nevada where a lot of those jobs should be coming to Nevada as well, and they should be investing in our kids. They should be investing in our education system, and they should be investing in our workforce as well, because we have everything that we need here in Nevada to not just make sure that that they are successful, but also we have the workforce that can make them successful at the same time. And we want to bring all those good things up as they come forward. And we're going to need the leadership of Assemblywoman Torres and others to make sure that we get there.
Thank you, Marco. I'll come back to you in just a second. Assemblywoman, we have a question in the chat for you specifically. And for those at home watching, if y'all have questions in the chat, especially for the Assemblywoman, she has to hop a little early tonight. So put them in the chat now. Our team will get them over to us. So Maria Teresa, who actually was off mute for a second, it was her mom coming to ask a question. And her mom said, my mom heard you and had a question. How can people help with the language access efforts by the Assemblywoman? So Assemblywoman, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, thank you. That's a great question. So I'm also the Secretary Treasurer of the Nevada Latino Legislative Caucus, and we'll be talking a little bit about our efforts this upcoming Monday. But language access is one of our priorities for the Latino Caucus. And with that, I have a couple bills. So one has to do with public notice, obviously, and we'll be looking for people to come out and testify and support that legislation, making sure that people can understand the mail that they're receiving, and that they can voice their concerns if they don't agree with a change in their community, and they can help participate in the political process and be civically engaged in their community, regardless of their native language. I think there's other legislation I'm working on that has to do with like language access at the polls, making sure that everybody has the ability to vote regardless of the language that they speak, and that it's consistent. And I know that that's something that the Secretary of State, Cisco Aguilar, is committed to working on as well. And he actually has requested in his budget the funds for a language access coordinator, which I think is going to be really key to the legislation. So it's going to work very well together. I think, we're going to see a number of legislation regarding healthcare and what language access looks like in that form. I also have a bill regarding cultural competency in the healthcare space. And I think, when we talk about language access, the consequences of not having an informed community means that there's members of our community that go without the care that they need. Somebody that I respect in a community who's actually a psychologist herself, she told me recently about how her mother had gone to the hospital and had an emergency situation, and they weren't providing translation services. There's two issues there. One, the doctor was very rude to her, didn't want to help work to provide the interpretive services that the mother deserved to have the care that she deserves. But then the second issue to this is that there wasn't the language translation services that the mother needed. So I think that there's two things that we can do. One, I think that the bill I'm caring regarding cultural competency and ensuring doctors are receiving the training that they need to ensure that they're treating every patient with the respect that they deserve. I think cultural competency training will come a long way to help provide the families with the comfort that they deserve in those critical moments. And second to that, I have another piece of legislation that's going to be working on like a Medicaid reimbursement for language translation services, which is really key to this, to make sure that families are receiving the translation services that they deserve when they are in the hospital. So I think those are some of the initiatives that we're working on this legislative cycle. I know that we're going to see a number of others, though, that are coming up. So please continue to reach out to the Latino Caucus. We'll be very active this session and make sure that we have a strong communication. So follow us on social media or follow myself, and we'll share those out.
Assemblywoman, I actually have a question for you on the language access piece. So during redistricting, we did see that, unfortunately, in the legislative building, there wasn't great language access for many of the people who wanted to participate in that process. What are we thinking about in terms of addressing that issue as well? And have you seen anything or any changes coming out of the redistricting process?
I think it's there needs to be more conversations, if I'm being abundantly honest, about what that looks like in the legislative building. I do believe that the legislature needs to be doing more to ensure that we have access to high quality translators when we have meetings and we have somebody that has that need. I will say that, I've had good and bad experiences with the building with getting translation services. I had a bill in 2019 and needed a translator and was provided phenomenal translator services. And similarly, in 2021, I requested a translator and the translator translated things wrong. And the committee members could tell. So there was a lot of frustration there. So, I'm hoping this upcoming legislative cycle that we have access that we need. But I will say that that'll be a part of the conversations that Latino Caucus is having early on with both the building and our leadership.
Well, let us know how we can be helpful on that, because I know Maria Teresa on our team feels strongly about that and actually enrolled in translation school after the redistricting process because she was so passionate about it. So thank you for your work on that. A couple other questions coming in for you, Assemblywoman. One here, it says, on lobby day, will activists who go to the Capitol be addressing climate change? And I know you've been there for a couple of different sessions now, Assemblywoman. So how does a typical lobby day look that you've seen before, and how do constituents engage when they're in the building?
So I love the community lobby days. That's one of my favorite times in the legislative session, because it's when we get people that, sometimes have worked on our campaigns, sometimes haven't, sometimes they're just getting involved in politics and they would just want to make sure that, their issue gets heard. And when these individuals are participating in this process, I think it's like key for us as legislators to listen. I think that the community is our strongest lobby group. So for me, these lobby days are pretty phenomenal. So generally when the lobby days occur, activists and organizations will bring up their group of people. There's usually a breakfast of some sort, and then they'll schedule meetings with legislators throughout the day. Most of us are pretty generous with our time. And if there's not a scheduled meeting, we'll try to make that time available. Remember, obviously, that, legislators get very, very busy. Sometimes depends when the legislative day is. So we might be in meetings all day. I know a lot of my days I'll be in meetings literally from 9 a.m. until 3 p.m. But if you find us at the right time, we're generally willing to talk, or even just to have a couple moments in the hallway while we're on our way to our next meeting or on our way to a floor session. Generally, we also invite those activists to come sit on the legislative floor with us, and so that we can introduce you and recognize the lobby day that you all are having and kind of bring more awareness to it in case you're not able to talk to all of our legislators. That's also another great opportunity to lobby legislators and have those conversations. And oftentimes there's an evening event or something like a dinner or a cocktail hour. And generally legislators are pretty gracious about attending, even if they only stop by for 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah. And Margaret, thank you for that question. We actually put the link to all the different lobby days that are coming up in the chat for the stuff that we're going to be participating in. I know Make the Road has some of our other partner groups have some. So definitely want to get you involved. We'll be paying for people to go up to grassroots lobby days this year. That's in late March, early April. So definitely would love to have all of you who are watching at home tag along with us, because we want people in the building going up and talking to the Assemblywoman. Assemblywoman, before you hop off, I just have one other question, and I think this is important in the context of this conversation. This question is from Amber, and she asks, how can Nevada look at more sources of renewable energy while also making sure we do not infringe on indigenous lands? And we know this has been a huge issue as we've started seeing more renewable energy developed, as we've seen battery factories develop, things like that. How do we strike that balance and make sure that we're protecting our public lands, indigenous lands, all of that?
I think a lot of this conversation is like when, we are creating policy that is done to a group of people. I think that's always the issue, right? I think that, we as legislators and as lawmakers have the responsibility to be working side and side with indigenous communities, with the reservations, with tribal leaders, to ensure that they're a part of that conversation and that, it's not something that is done to these communities. I think that's really the most critical part, is that they're a part of the conversation and that we're having these conversations together, and not just saying, this is what we're going to do in the backyard of your community, but rather working together to solve the issue and figure out how we can meet common ground.
Awesome. Thank you so much for hopping on, Assemblywoman. We're going to continue the conversation with Jose and Marco, but Assemblywoman, for those who want to get a hold of you during session, obviously your contact information for your legislative office is on the Nevada legislative website. We'll put that in the chat, but how else can folks get in touch with you if they want to follow the good work that you're doing this session?
If you want to follow the good work that we're doing, definitely reach out to my office, or you can follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, what else? Twitter, at Selena Torres NV. So SELENA TORRES NV, like Nevada. So follow me and please reach out and engage if you have questions. I'm posting tons of new TikTok content, so make sure you're liking and commenting. Thank you.
I don't follow TikToks, but I follow her TikToks, so they're the best. So make sure you follow her on all the social media. Thank you, Assemblywoman. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
See you on Monday.
See you then.
Jose, I want to come back to you. So speaking of, you're a member of the Hispanic Caucus on Environmental Justice Subcommittee. What action would you like to see this legislative session? And, we just talked about with the Assemblywoman protecting indigenous land, protecting our public lands. What do you want to see come out of this legislative session?
Yes, definitely. So there's a lot of things that we want to see, but the biggest important thing that we want to see is to see all of these resources brought to our communities, to East Las Vegas, because like I mentioned before, East Las Vegas is the largest, if not the largest urban heat island here in the valley. And that's due to not having the same resources. So we need to bring in more green spaces in East Las Vegas. We need to bring more green spaces, parks, less concrete, more greenery. And the main mission is to just bring as many resources as possible to our doorstep.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And, Make the Road Nevada was part of the team, along with our team, Maria Teresa and others on our team, who worked on the Breathe Free Nevada report. And we'll put the link to the report in the chat. Can you tell us about that report and what your team has learned about being frontline BIPOC communities dealing with the climate crisis?
Definitely. So with this report, I believe that one of the main things we can highlight is that the main point we have to work on is getting people the information they need in a way that is relatable to them. We need to bring environmental issues in a way that is relatable. Right now, with this report, we are working on creating awareness in the community of the importance of climate change and the impact it has on our day-to-day lives. Our community is passionate about climate change once you make this subject easy to understand. And as a reminder, there are language barriers and there is environmental jargon difficult to understand.
Thank you, Jose. Marco, I want to come back to you. So with your experience in Carson City, what do you think has changed for climate policy advocates under now Joe Lombardo's time, being, having been so new? And what do you expect out of this legislative session for renewable energy and climate change?
So, back to the Assemblywoman's earlier point, it's hard for us to expect right now, very simply because there was so little said and so little being said about, anything having to do with climate change and the future of renewable or investments in the renewable energy area. So I'm hopeful that at a minimum, this this administration will not get in the way of progress. I'm hopeful that they're going to come and do the work that they need to do in order for us to continue to do the investments. I'm hopeful that they won't let their foot off the gas. I mean, this is something that, once again, to the point we've all made earlier, is this is investments in renewable energies in that sector have brought hundreds and if not thousands of jobs into Nevada. And so we want to make sure that those jobs continue. And these jobs happen to be well paid. These jobs happen to be jobs that are going to, to people that belong to unions. These jobs come with great benefits. So at a very minimum, we hope that he just, that this administration just doesn't get in the way, right? And that they continue to do the work that, Governor Sandoval had started, and Governor Sisolak had continued. So that's what I got on that. So, what has changed in climate policy? Back, very simply, it's not out in the forefront as it should be, or as it was the last couple of decades, right? So, I think that's the change. We're just not talking about it as much as we used to, and I think that it's going to. We need to get to a point where we can start having these conversations, and we can start pushing Nevada to just a better future, and just to continue the work that's already been done.
So for this session, Marco, what is Climate Power working on, and what are y'all hoping comes out of this session at the end? Are you looking at certain bills? Are you watching certain bills? Obviously the bills that the Assemblywoman's talking about, but are there other things that the people at home should be watching for, things like that?
There are several bills that are coming up during the session as well, that have to do with climate change. I think that Make the Road has been up to speed with a lot of these bills, and we can let Jose talk about it a little bit more. But also the Environmental Justice Coalition is getting in the front of a lot of these bills as well, that just happen to take place when it comes to down climate change.
Yeah. So, Jose, let's talk about that a little bit. What other bills, other than the one that you talked about with food vendors, what are some of the other bills that you're watching for this session? And what are some of the other things that you're hoping comes out of session just generally?
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for that question. So apart from the environmental justice campaign, with Make the Road Nevada, we also have different other campaigns, such as health equity campaigns. We have the economic justice campaign. I know that for the health equity campaign, we're trying to lower the cost of ambulance costs, right? Because it's not something so easy to pay for, right? And so a lot of the times when community members get in an accident or something, they try to not call 911 or get an ambulance due to the cost. So we're trying to lower the cost. The biggest idea that we have here at Make the Road Nevada is that we need to make all type of resources available and reachable to our community. If it's not reachable, that's what we're fighting for. And that's one of the legislative pieces that we're also working on right now.
And then what are some of the other priorities for the Nevada Environmental Justice Coalition? And what are you all hoping to get out of session as well?
So during the session, we're also working on a project called the Buenares para Todos project. So this study, in coordination with UNLV and partner organizations, will be measuring the quality of air in East Las Vegas in 2023. We have seen in other studies that Latina children are about 3 times more likely than non-Latina children to live in a county where air pollution levels exceed federal air quality standards and are twice as likely to visit an emergency room for asthma. So I believe that everything has some type of intersectionality when it comes to the campaigns that we have and the legislative pieces that we have. This project will also focus on expanding community awareness, education, and outreach to help residents better understand the air quality measurements and the health impacts of poor air quality and extreme heat.
Awesome. All right. I want to go to some of our audience questions because we're getting some really good ones. Brian asks, how is climate change affecting farms and our food? Jose or Marco, do you want to take that one?
So I think that we've seen a lot of reports where it's become very difficult for food agricultural folks, farmers and ranchers to essentially just plan for the future. Right. The climate is just getting so erratic. It used to just be able to go buy an almanac at your local store, and your almanac will tell you when to plant, when to water, and when to sow your produce. Right now, it's becoming very, very hard to be able to do that. In the West, especially when it comes to just cattle, it's not just being able to feed your cattle, but it's also being able to find the water necessary for you to be able to give your cattle the water for you to drink, right? So it's very interesting what farmers and agricultural business people are going through. One of the things that I know that a lot of folks are working on, specifically, I don't know the bill number, but State Senator Pat Spearman has been working on a lot of community farming bills as well, hydroponics programs as well. We need to figure out a better way for us to be able to farm our food, especially in the West. A lot of food comes from California. However, though, California is also going through a drought. So we need to figure out better ways and better technology for us to be able to save water. Especially in that big infrastructure of pipes that just goes just about everywhere in order for you to be able to water your crops, right? So how do we create these technologies to ensure that water isn't being evaporated while farmers are trying to farm? How do we make it easier for people that want to venture into hydroponics, are able to have the necessary investments to be able to do that? There's a lot of things that we need to be talking about. And we're hoping that some of these issues get addressed during the session as well.
Speaking of that, and speaking of water, and we talked a little bit about this with the Assemblywoman earlier, and this can be for either one of you. So this is another question from the chat. We hear whiskey is for drinking, but water is for fighting. How can y'all expand and tell us what that means? And I say it a lot on here because I actually learned it at UNLV when I was there in natural resource policy. And it's a Mark Twain quote from back in the day when we first started our water policy. But Marco, Jose, what does that mean to you? And what does that mean in terms of what we're facing this legislative session and for the future with climate change?
I'll answer this question. So I'm going to put my input into this regarding our youth at the moment. Right now, we're having a big issue with water access in our education system. Right now, Make the Road Nevada is prioritizing providing refillable water bottle stations in all schools, public schools in in Las Vegas. And the issue is that we have students who are advocating for water access, and now our youth are involved in this. So it's a huge fight. So in my opinion, it's very important that we have these conversations, that we're opening spaces for our youth, for our community, talk about these issues, because we need to bring these issues into the table.
Yeah. So if I may add, Annette, is very simply, when expansion into the West started, our main artery for water in the Southwest had been the Colorado River, the Great Water Basin, obviously, and a lot of, and specifically for Nevada, there were a lot of industries that came into Nevada, and right off the bat, we started fighting over water rights, right? Whether that was ranching and farming, whether that was the indigenous communities that were used to being able to go out and draft as much as that water as possible, or whether that was the mining interests that needed the water in order for them to be able to extract certain minerals, right? So at the end of the day, this conversation about water isn't new. And the fact that one of the great American writers, put this quote together just says a lot about the West, right? It was in Virginia City where he came up with this quote, right? So just imagine the fact that we're still having those conversations. And the truth is that even the federal government is starting to get a little bit more involved. When the Water Compact between the Southwest was created over 100 years ago, Nevada was a very small population. California obviously got the biggest allocation of water from the Colorado River because they were the biggest populated state, right? But now we're finding ourselves in situations where there's a lot of desert farming, not just in California, but also in Arizona. And now that, we've seen the first water cuts to states, the states that are that were cut the most were two of the highest growing states in the nation, right? Nevada and Arizona. So the truth is that the bigger states are still benefiting the most from these waters. We need to figure out better ways. For example, the Southern Nevada Water District has done an amazing job at water conservation in the Las Vegas Valley. And now they're exporting a lot of those ideas into a lot of states and into the Southwest. I think that the states states like California, Arizona, Utah, especially, that are at the bottom of the Colorado River, need to start working together on finding better ways of conservation in order for us to ensure that the river continues to flow for years to come as well. Because droughts in the West are not new. It's just something that, it's going to get better at some point, but at the same time with population growth, we're going to have other droughts, right? We're going to have these conversations again. So it's better for us to have these conversations now, find the better solutions today in order for us to be able to have a good plan for the future.
Thank you for that, both of you. Jose, I want to ask you this question because of the membership y'all work with over at Make the Road. Rita asks, are school children joining your advocacy work? We know from the Greta Thunbergs and her cohorts that school kids are highly effective and they're doing amazing work, young people are. So how are you engaging young people in your work?
Yes, definitely. So at Make the Road Nevada, we have the YPP, or the Youth Power Project. And this project is we open up a space for our youth in our communities to discuss the issues that are deeply affecting them. So they have been open about not having access to water, to clean water. And a lot of these schools actually shut down the water stations because it's some type of distraction, supposedly. So this is something that our children are dealing with, and it's unfortunately, apart from water access, we have been advocating to get school police out of our campuses because they are instilling fear with our students when this space at school, it should be a safe space for them. So the YPP meets every week, I believe, and it's amazing to see the empowerment of all of these students, very empowered and so interested in these issues because it's not very known. And so my message and their message as well is that they want to be included in these spaces. They don't want to be talked down as children. They are our leaders of tomorrow, and we should be starting to treat them like that.
Absolutely. Marco, what about you all? How is Climate Power engaging young people in your work, especially since, they're probably going to be the ones who save us all on this issue?
I think overall is going to be engaging with organizations and groups like Jose's, and, giving them the support that they need, right? During the election, we had a press conference with your old bosses, Congresswoman Dina Titus, and also we were lucky enough to have Assemblyman Edgar Flores as part of that conversation as well, and also some youth groups inside of NCL, the Nevada Conservation League, and the discussion was, at the end of the day, the people that are going to be affected the most by climate change are our youth, people that are that are growing up in this world today, right? So we're going to do anything that we can do to uplift all of the good work that youth organizers and organizations are doing, to promote solutions to the climate change issue. We want to uplift all of the good work that youth organizers and youth organizations are doing, to advocate on behalf of the economy that they're looking for, which is more renewable, is more sustainable. This is the economy that young people are asking for, and here in Nevada we can provide those jobs. So we continue to hope that we're going to continue to uplift all of the good work that they're doing, in order for us to make sure that they have a better future for themselves.
Awesome. Thank you, Marco. And Guadalupe, thank you for your comment in the chat. It's so nice to see you today. Thank you for saying that we are one of the best channels to address social issues. We appreciate you. Thanks for always tuning in. It's always good to see you and have you participating. So thank you. So, Marco, Jose, I want to just wrap with you all. We're starting session on Monday. I am nervous and excited. I'm going to take Brian and Paula and Maria and Matilda on our team up there with me on Monday. They're going to go learn how to lobby. Well, Maria knows how to lobby, but the other ones are going to go learn how to lobby and be in the legislative building with us. We're going to live stream some of the stuff that's going on up there. We'll probably be live on our pages throughout the day, Monday and Tuesday. So you're going to want to follow along at home on Battle Board Progress, Facebook and Twitter. But what are some of your hopes and dreams just overall for this session? And Marco, what are you hoping that we get out of this session as we move into the legislative session on Monday?
I think we're looking for good policy overall. We're looking for good bills that are going to leapfrog us into the future, right? One of the conversations, one of the things that our friend Senator Brooks brought up today is that sometimes in government gets in the way of innovation. Here in Nevada, we have been staying out of the way of innovation, so we continue to do so. So I'm looking for continued support for our environment and continued support for the renewable energy sector, and also for just a more sustainable economic future, not just for us, but back to the question earlier, but also for our youth.
Absolutely. Jose, what are your hopes and dreams for this session?
Oh, our hopes and dreams for this session is to see positive changes in our environment. We want to see more natural resources coming to our communities, and also have this environmental issue very understandable or easy to understand, because my community is filled with people that are very interested in this subject, but unfortunately they're not met halfway. So we need to go meet them halfway, inform them, make it understandable to them, and allow them to work with us to make these positive changes.
All right. Thank you both. Before we wrap tonight, I want to bring Brian in. Brian, I'm super excited. This is going to be your first legislative session. I know you're stoked. You're going up with me to Freeze in Carson City on Monday. Tell me what you're excited about working with the Battle Board Progress family, and what you're most excited about for a legislative session. And then we'll talk about some of the defensive work we have to do this session too.
For sure. Thank you. And I really appreciate you having me on. Hey, folks at home. Glad you can join us in this great conversation. I appreciate Marco, Jose, and Assemblywoman Torres being on our Out in Front episode tonight. I really loved hearing the conversation that y'all provided and answering the questions that we all had for you. I really do appreciate that. But I'm just really excited about being able to be in a room full of individuals who really want to make a change in this great state of Nevada. I really want to make sure that we continue to have strong voting rights laws here in Nevada, strong criminal justice reform laws here in Nevada. So I want to make sure that during this legislative session, we don't roll back anything that makes Nevada and makes us, the leaders in great voting rights issues and things of that sort. Like, we really want to make sure that we go up to Carson City this year and hold our legislators accountable, but also make sure that we champion good laws here in the state and, continue strong going into the future.
What about vouchers? What are you worried about on that? I know we've been talking a lot about that on our side of things. Are you worried about that as a parent?
I am actually. I feel as if, public education could be so much stronger, but I don't think that school vouchers are the way to go at all. I feel as if that would, greatly impact our public school educators and, make things harder for them when we can definitely put the funding behind our public school educators and make the system that we have in place already stronger and, not trying to recreate the wheel here.
All right. Well, Brian, I'm super excited to go to Carson City with you. I'm super excited to lobby. What are you most excited about on Monday? What are you excited to see?
I'm excited to just see, I've never been to Carson City. I've never, been to Reno at all, or, Northern Nevada. I'm really just excited to see really what's there. I'm kind of nervous about it because it's like I've been to different places in Nevada, but this is just new, I had an idea though. I definitely had an idea. So I was talking to Amber on our team the other day, and I was like, man, what would be a good idea to have a snowball fight before we leave Carson? And, I think that would be really fun for us there. Don't you agree?
Look at him putting me on the spot out in front. I think that would be splendid because my love of cold. Marco, did you want to add something to that? Because I'm going to change the subject really quickly.
Just real quick, there's plenty of snow up here for a fight. I will say that much.
I'm always down for a fight, Marco, but I don't know about this kind, okay? Brian and his great ideas.
Yeah, just to Brian's point, actually, Brian's completely right. I mean, Nevada has been innovating, not just in water conservation, has been innovating in our green energy space and our renewable energy space, but also in voting rights. Little Nevada has been innovative in many different ways. So you're right, Brian. I'm hoping that we don't let go of any of that innovation this session or any session hereafter.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I want to thank everyone, Brian. We're going to go up to session and have a great time, even if it's just us making memes and trolling Joe Lombardo the entire time, because that's what I'll do if I have to. And I look forward to doing it. And guess what, everyone? We're officially back out in front next week in front of the legislative building, like our namesake. So I will be standing in the freezing cold out in front of the legislative building next week with all of you. So I can't wait to be there. And I can't wait to do some live streams and some other stuff with the team as we go up there next week. So follow along with us on Facebook and Twitter. We'll be back live with you at 5 next week out in front of the building in Carson City as I move up there on Saturday. You can follow my journey. They have memes made already of my car. So follow along with us on social media for that as well. And I'll see you in Carson City. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. And hopefully we make some great change on climate change this session. Talk to you all soon. See you next week.